breaking news. Now, as many of you are well aware, there is a concerted effort underway by the deep state in Washington, D.C. to oust President Donald Trump from office in a myriad of ways, including the possibility of using the 25th Amendment to the United States Constitution to have him declared mentally unfit to continue to serve as President of the United States. There is a growing restlessness within the heartland of America by the people who voted for Donald Trump and who now feel that those who are attempting to do harm to him in any way, shape, or form might need to be stopped using the possibility of physical violence if necessary. No one wants it to come to that. No one wants any form of civil unrest to occur in this country. But there are those who believe that if the deep state is allowed to succeed in its effort to oust Donald Trump, that the people who voted for him, the people that support Donald Trump, will take to the streets of America in outrage, in civil unrest, in disunity, and will do anything and everything in their power to bring this country back to what Donald Trump is attempting to bring it back to, and that is what the Founding Fathers intended. He's attempting to bring back the country that we all love and cherish, the rule of law, the protection of our borders, the sovereignty of this country, immigration reform that includes stopping those who would do us harm from getting into this country, and much, much more. Restoring of our economy, our infrastructure. These are things that the deep state, and we're talking about people on both the left and the right. This is not a Republican or a Democrat issue. We expect the opposition party, in this particular case the Democrats, to oppose anything and everything Donald Trump does. But when he has people within his own party, the Republicans, fighting him at every turn, these rhino Republicans, not repealing and replacing Obamacare, putting the idea of tax reform in jeopardy, when all of these things are being fought tooth and nail by the people that are supposed to be on Donald Trump's side and on the side of the American people, something is seriously wrong. Now, up until this point, Donald Trump has attempted to surround himself, after his election on a populist ticket, basically, because he was not a conservative or a Republican, he was a populist, but he attempted to surround himself with establishment people within the deep state who he thought he would be able to pull over to his side and get things done. Instead, these people are turning against him, issuing leaks to the press, and doing everything in their power to obstruct the President of the United States. In the meantime, we have people like Robert Mueller conducting as a special counsel an investigation allegedly into Russian hacking into the 2016 presidential election, which never occurred, and now, not having been able to find anything out about that, is attempting to expand the investigation into Trump's finances, going as far back as the early 2000s, long before Donald Trump ever considered a run for the presidency of the United States. And they're going after Trump associates and confidants, such as Paul Manafort, one of his campaign managers, because they believe they will be able to put the screws to Manafort and get him to turn evidence against Donald Trump. Is this going to happen? There have been others that already have been targets of the deep state because they want to help the President of the United States get things done. One of them was former National Security Advisor Micheal Flynn, who was forced to resign when the deep state went after him for inappropriate alleged contacts with the Russians. And now they're continuing to go after him and will probably try to prosecute him to the fullest extent of the law. But here's the rub. Certain members of Trump's inner circle have defense mechanisms in place which will enable them to prevent, perhaps, damage being done to their lives, their careers, and the president by use of certain information that, if released, could be very damaging to the deep state. Now, the other day, political operative Roger Stone, subject of the Netflix documentary Get Me, Roger Stone, and author of several political books and member of lobbying groups that he has helped to found, sent out a cryptic tweet about the deep state, about General Micheal Flynn, and information he has on the pedophile ring operating out of Washington, D.C., that we have been covering in our reports on Pizzagate right here on our YouTube channel. And when I saw this cryptic tweet posted August the 5th, I knew that at that point it was imperative that I get a hold of Roger Stone and interview him, get him on the radio show and onto this YouTube video so that we could get this information out to you. So in a wide-ranging interview, we're going to talk with Roger Stone about the pedophile ring, the information that General Micheal Flynn has on the deep state pedophile ring. We're going to talk about the people that Donald Trump is surrounding himself with, including his current National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, and whether he is truly on Donald Trump's side or if he's attempting to fight him at every turn. We're going to talk about Donald Trump's Chief of Staff, John Kelly. We're going to talk about Reince Priebus, who's behind all of the leaking, and how, if anything, what, if anything, Donald Trump can do to prevent his being ousted as President of the United States if a deep state coup were to try to take him out. Now, before we get to our interview with Roger Stone, I'd like to give you a little bit of deep background into information that we talked about months ago in a previous YouTube video that we did about General Micheal Flynn and the information that he has on the deep state pedophile ring operating out of Washington, D.C. It was part of one of our earlier Pizzagate reports. We're going to revisit this information as the truth is about to be unsealed. A former CIA agent says that General Micheal Flynn was ousted from the White House after obtaining a Washington, D.C. pedophile list naming high-level politicians who belong to a D.C. pedo ring. According to Robert David Steele, Flynn was actually fired after he obtained a list of names, some of whom the FBI were actively investigating in connection to the Pizzagate scandal, and one of whom was Vice President Mike Pence's best friend. The former CIA officer says that there are locations in Washington, D.C. and Saudi Arabia where children are routinely ordered and trafficked to highly placed politicians operating in the capital. According to Steele, Donald Trump is our chance to take down the deep state. The white hat intelligence community was able to stop Hillary from rigging the vote electronically like she did to Bernie Sanders. Former CIA head John Brennan committed treason by telling lies intended to overturn the Electoral College. John Brennan is the highest paid agent of Saudi Arabia and should be under FBI investigation. Reince Priebus was an enabler and cover-upper of pedophilia, and part of the reason he was replaced as Chief of Staff was because of that. And former Speaker of the House Dennis Hastert is just the tip of the iceberg. Pedophilia is an elite privilege. For the Democrats, it is an acquired taste, and John Podesta is pedo-light. The Republicans and the elite in banking are the ones who have made pedophilia a big league thing. There are Saudi Arabian and Washington, D.C. restaurants with basements where you can order children off the menu. D.C. pedophilia is the Achilles heel, and Donald Trump has figured that out. General Flynn did not get fired because he called the Russians. Flynn got fired because he had the arrogance to think that he could tell Mattis and Tillerson what to do. And Flynn pissed off Vice President Pence. Now, Flynn's call that got him into trouble included a conversation about a list of high-level pedophiles inside the U.S., one of whom happens to be Vice President Mike Pence's best friend, Jeff Flake. Flynn did not tell Pence about the list or that his best friend was on it. Pence found out about this from the deep state. The NSA has been spying on all of our politicians with impunity, and the CIA is leaking highly classified information as part of a political and military coup against Donald Trump. Now that we have a little bit of background information on General Micheal Flynn and the information that he might have on the deep state pedophile ring operating out of Washington, D.C., I'd like to bring in a guest, Roger Stone. Roger Stone is an American political consultant, a lobbyist and strategist, noted for his use of opposition research, usually for candidates of the Republican Party. Back in 1980, he co-founded the Washington, D.C.-based lobbying firm Black Manafort Stone, along with the principals Paul Manafort and Charles R. Black, Jr. Stone has been referred to in media variously as a political dirty trickster, if you will, a renowned infighter, a seasoned practitioner of hard-edged politics, and a veteran Republican strategist. Over the course of his political career, Stone has been widely regarded as promoting a number of what some people refer to as conspiracy theories. However, from what we've seen within just the last few months, the idea of a deep state and its opposition to a sitting U.S. president is not a conspiracy theory, but very real. Stone is the subject of a current Netflix documentary film titled Get Me, Roger Stone. Roger Stone joins us on the hotline right now. Roger Stone, welcome to the program.
I'm delighted to be here.
Well, thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you with us. And again, the last time I had the opportunity of speaking with you, we had your book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, the case against LBJ, had just come out. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. And the reason I wanted to have you on the program today to begin with is an interesting tweet that you sent out back on the 5th of August. It says, General Flynn has a list of high-level pedophiles, the release of which will decimate the deep state dons. Now, I have been covering this scandal going on called Pedogate, which a lot of the mainstream media has referred to as fake news. And one of my sources had indicated at one point that General Flynn indeed did have some information on some of these people, and your tweet seems to indicate that there is validity to that. Can you give us a little bit of insight on what you meant by that tweet?
Sure. Let me say several things. First of all, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, the case against LBJ, would go on to become a New York Times bestseller.
As it should.
Has sold over 75,000 copies in hard copy and cover and soft, and the paperback version has 3 additional chapters of new information regarding the corruption and mental instability of Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was a psychopath and a serial murderer. It wasn't just John Kennedy. He killed at least 15 men or women to cover up corruption, to cover up voter theft, and I believe that there's substantial evidence that he murdered his own sister to prevent her from talking about the theft of his very first U.S. Senate election. So I appreciate you mentioning it, and I commend that to your listeners.
Well, I would highly recommend that they get the updated version of the book then, because it sounds to me like there's a lot more information in there, and it's worth having that second copy.
I think that is the case. And, of course, it's in paperback, so it's a little less expensive. The tweet you referred to is based on my own substantial research. The idea that is promulgated by the mainstream media that pedophilia is non-existent is less than false. In fact, among a certain strata of society in both the United States and Europe, many of the elites are engaging in pedophilia, sex trafficking of children. We have documented substantial sex trafficking from the nation of Haiti in the wake of the horrific earthquake there. This is sex trafficking conducted by the government, installed and abetted by Bill and Hillary Clinton. I think a number of the high-level officials around the Clintons in her campaign and in his White House are active pedophiles. General Flynn, I am led to believe, has a list of known pedophiles that was provided to him by sources, international sources in the Netherlands. And I believe that is his ultimate protection in the current deep state effort to take him and President Trump down. I know of no evidence of any illegal activity by General Flynn. Those who say, well, he lobbied for Turkey and he failed to register and disclose that are incorrect. By law, a lobbying contract held by the, at that point, former general with the nation of Turkey would have to be held in two places. One, in the U.S. House of Representatives with the clerk, and the other with the State Department Office of Foreign Agent Registration. Now, in this case, General Flynn filed with the House, but he failed to file with the State Department. If he were trying to hide something, if he were trying to conceal it, he would never have filed anywhere. This was just an inadvertent legal mistake, and obviously can easily be remedied with a amended filing under the Foreign Agent Registration Act. So it's much ado about nothing. It's an attempt, I believe, to discredit General Flynn because the elites and those engaged in pedophilia, child sex trafficking, know that he has the goods on them.
And this is all part of a further effort by the part of the deep state to bring down President Donald Trump. Now, I know that you were one of his closest advisors during the campaign, and you are the subject of a great documentary on Netflix called "Get Me Roger Stone," which I also had the pleasure of watching and would recommend. You're a very keen political operative. What do you make of all of this Russia hacking scandal, and especially knowing that you are a friend or an acquaintance of Paul Manafort? He was part of your lobbying firm back in the early 1980s. The FBI raiding his home in the pre-dawn hours of a late July day. What are they trying to do? Is Mueller trying to pull the screws on Manafort to get him to turn evidence on Trump, or what's happening here?
You put your finger right on it. First of all, there never was any Russian hacking of the DNC. There's a terrific piece in The Nation magazine today that documents this. The Nation is not exactly a right-wing organ, not exactly a conservative publication, but a number of experts, counterintelligence experts like William Biddy and Ray McGovern and others have come forward. And the overwhelming evidence is that there never was any Russian hacking or any hacking at all of the DNC, that the material that was purloined from the Democratic National Committee, which revealed corruption, which revealed Hillary's efforts to steal the nomination from Bernie Sanders, cheating in order to do so, was loaded to thumb drives and was spirited out of the building, most likely by Seth Rich, and lagged to WikiLeaks. Now, in the case of Paul Manafort, who is a very good friend of mine of over 40 years, an usher in my wedding, my campaign manager when I was elected Young Republican National Chairman in 1977, and a lifelong friend, it's very simple. Robert Mueller would like him to bear false witness against the president. Robert Mueller would like Manafort to lie and claim that he was in league with the Russians and that Donald Trump knew all about it. The problem is, it's completely false, and I spoke to Manafort this morning. He is not going to lie. He is 100% behind the president. He has no intention of testifying against him or saying the things that the government wants him to say. In this case, the early morning raid is an outrageous overreach by Mueller. If he wanted any more documents from Manafort, he simply had to ask for them. Manafort has complied to give them everything that they have requested to date. And the law firm representing Manafort, Wilmer Hale, is the same law firm that Mr. Mueller just left to become special counsel. Therefore, when Mr. Mueller's former law partners assured him there are no more documents, he ignored them. Does he think his own former law partners are liars? Does he think they would perjure themselves? Mueller's a disgrace. His coaching of former FBI Director James Comey, a man who perjured himself before the House Intelligence Committee when the FISA court documented mass surveillance of Americans under Obama was revealed. He tried to cover it up. Mr. Mueller coached Mr. Comey on his testimony. Mr. Mueller also interviewed for the job of FBI director the day after Mr. Comey was fired and was passed over for that job. Thus, his animus towards the president. Thus, his motive for smearing the president. Mueller must resign. If he won't resign, he must be fired. That's my view.
Well, I agree with your view 100%. This is definitely sour grapes for not getting the FBI director job, and he is personal friends with James Comey, so we know that that's another two peas in a pod type of situation. And the fact that they have found absolutely no evidence of Russian collusion and have now expanded the investigation into Trump's personal finances going back several years before he ever even considered running for president indicates to me that this is nothing but a witch hunt. You are correct about that.
It is, and let me go a step further. If, and I fear this, and I do not advocate it, if there is an illegitimate attempt to remove Donald Trump from office, if Mr. Mueller trumps up phony charges, there will be mass bloodshed in this country. There will be violence like you have never seen. The American people will not stand for it, and it will be open season on career politicians who lie and violate their oath of office in an attempt to undo the last election. I make it very clear, that's not a threat, that's analysis. I was just in Nevada. I met with 400 ranchers, and they were all armed. They're ready to go to Washington. They try to remove this president. I urge them that violence is not the answer, but people are fed up. Chuck Schumer will not be able to show his face in public, I assure you, if they want to take this illegitimate, unconstitutional step. I really fear the country will collapse into anarchy and violence if there's an attempt to remove a duly elected president through a bogus investigation by Robert Mueller.
Well, and if you take a look at the recent rally last week with Trump in West Virginia, with a Democrat governor switched parties to the Republican Party, you know that in the heartland of America, the American people are 100% behind Donald Trump, and they will not stand for a witch hunt attempt to remove him from office. And again, we hope that there is no violence, as you said, but I do see something happening in 2018 at the midterms. A lot of these rhino Republicans that are not getting behind Donald Trump and are never Trumpers might find themselves out of a job. At least we can hope for that.
Well, I would like to agree with you, but I must say I'm very, very disappointed in the president's decision to endorse the appointed senator of Alabama, Luther Strange, in next week's special election. Luther Strange is a wholly owned subsidiary of Mitch McConnell. Luther Strange did not vote for Donald Trump. Luther Strange does not support the efforts to change the U.S. Senate rule so that a majority rules and you don't need 60% to get anything done. If the president wanted to send a message to House and Senate Republicans that there's consequences for those who oppose his agenda, he should have gone to Alabama and endorsed the only candidate in that race who is a true Trump supporter, Dr. Randy Brinson, the former chairman of the Alabama Christian Coalition. Instead, he rolled over for Mitch McConnell, sending a message to every Republican in Washington, you can screw Donald Trump and there's no consequences.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who agree with you, and I happen to be one of them. Although there are some who would say that the entire thing was part of Donald Trump's art of the deal to get maybe some action on the repealing and replacing of Obamacare, and he wanted to do something to maybe get Mitch McConnell on his side, because up until this point, McConnell has been nothing but critical of the president, saying things like, well, he has no experience in politics and all that sort of thing, and he doesn't realize these things take a great amount of time. And I think maybe Donald Trump's plan was to maybe appease him in some way, although, as you said, again, that might have been a mistake.
Well, that hasn't worked. I mean, first of all, the president appoints Mitch McConnell's wife Secretary of Transportation. She's the longest-serving member of the George W. Bush cabinet. Her family is very high up in the Chinese Communist Party. She should be fired. Why did we ever hire her to begin with? She's a charter member of the swamp. She didn't even vote for Donald Trump. So let's start there. Secondarily, Mitch McConnell hasn't worked for the president. He's worked against him. It's now time to start taking out Republican incumbents in primaries one by one, and watch the rest of them wet their pants and fall in line. The president has the power, but he has to use it. And endorsing corrupt losers like Luther Strange, who's under investigation for extorting his appointment to the U.S. Senate out of outgoing Governor Robert Bennett, on his way to jail on a sex and corruption scandal. At the same time, he was under investigation for taking bribes. He's under investigation for utilizing state attorney general campaign funds for a U.S. Senate bid. There's no good reason for the president not to have taken a stand in Alabama. Believe me, if he had inserted a Trump supporter into Jeff Sessions' seat instead of a quizzling running dog for Mitch McConnell, it would have been the shot heard around the world.
What do you make of the attitude of Senator, John McCain, who, we wish nothing but the best in terms of the health crisis that he's under right now, and we certainly don't wish him any ill will in that regard. But as a lifelong member of the United States Senate, do you think that when he voted down the opportunity to move forward with the repealing and replacing of Obamacare, this was payback for the comments that Trump had made during the campaign about him not really being a war hero?
I think that Senator McCain is deeply bitter and jealous of Donald Trump because Trump was elected president and John McCain was rejected. I must tell you, I've known John McCain for, probably close to 40 years. He's mentally unbalanced. I'm tired of his tirades. I'm tired of the red face screaming, the abusive staff, the diva act. The man is not well. He's sick in the head. I mean, beyond his brain tumor, perhaps there's some connection. Now, I wish him a speedy recovery. I wish him great health and a long life. But the president made a mistake again. Instead of endorsing John McCain in 2016, he should have endorsed his opponent, State Senator Kelly Ward. She'd be in the Senate right now had he done so. John McCain is a senile, mentally unbalanced misfit whose record in Vietnam has been misrepresented. He sung like a canary. He had to be pardoned by President Nixon to avoid court-martial. These are only the facts. These, of course, were not widely known in Arizona at the time of his election. So his entire erratic, overwrought, hair-trigger attitude, I think people in Arizona have had for it. I was just in Tucson. The man can't set foot in his home state because the voters might lynch him. It's that bad.
I happen to agree with you. We have played on my radio show the audio clip of John McCain's Tokyo Rose moment when he, talked about how well the Viet Cong treated him after his capture. And I know for a fact that you're absolutely right. His record has been misrepresented. I think that's what Donald Trump was saying when he talked about questioning how much of a hero John McCain really was. He didn't want to take it any farther than that, but that's exactly what he was referring to, and there was a lot of people who agree with you on that.
No, in fact, I've been thinking about trying to get a petition to be signed by over 1 million veterans denouncing him and calling him out on his phony record. It's time to end the mainstream myth about what this guy is. He's not a hero. He's not a patriot. He's a nut job.
We're talking with Roger Stone, author of The Man Who Killed Kennedy, the case against LBJ, which, by the way, is now out in paperback and has been updated to include new information. So if you have not had an opportunity to purchase the book, this would be a great time to do so. Who do you think are responsible for all of the leaks inside the Trump White House right now? Was Reince Priebus one of the leakers?
Without any question, the former Chief of Staff, Reince Priebus, was one of the leakers. He would often have underlings do the actual leaking in his direction. The Deputy Chief of Staff, Katie Walsh, was caught red-handed leaking. She was hired by the president for it. Many of the leaks, of course, are coming from the Obama appointees who are still in power in most of the intelligence agencies, as well as the State Department and the Defense Department. The fact that the current administration, even today, is about 20% Trump appointees and about 80% Obama appointees, this is the direct fault of Reince Priebus, who had no plan and did not move aggressively to fill vacancies and make appointments that were loyal to the president. And then, sadly, in many cases, people who hate Donald Trump and did not vote for him and don't support his reform agenda were appointed to august government positions. Let's take this fellow, General McMaster. McMaster was previously affiliated with a think tank financed by George Soros. His chief deputy, a woman named Fiona Hill, came directly from George Soros' Open Society Institute, which is a fun organization that is seeking to topple democratically elected governments across the world. McMaster is a globalist, member of the Council on Foreign Relations, and is adamantly opposed to everything Donald Trump stands for. It was the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who convinced the president to appoint this Quisling. He is also, as you probably know, an adamant opponent of the State of Israel.
Yes.
McMaster has to go. McMaster, several days ago, said that there was nothing whatsoever wrong with Susan Rice's engagement in political espionage against the president. And, in fact, he extended the security clearance for Susan Rice. Now, I can tell you firsthand, the president has never been informed of those two facts. General Kelly's job is to isolate the president and to try to cut him off from any political information that he might find upsetting or contrary to the goals of the globalists. In fact, when the president put out a statement seeming to support General McMaster, he was tricked into it. He was told that some people are criticizing McMaster for not being sufficiently pro-Israel, and General Kelly asked him to put out a general statement in support of McMaster. The president was not aware that that very day McMaster had said there was nothing whatsoever wrong with Susan Rice's using surveillance information by the intelligence services to undermine Donald Trump and his campaign for president, which is, by the way, a federal crime for which he should be indicted and sent to prison.
So you're telling me that that President Trump does not know that McMaster is supporting Susan Rice and continuing her security clearance? He's been shielded from this?
That is correct. That was not included in the president's news summary, and the president is unaware of it.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. What do you think of General Kelly, though, as Chief of Staff, in replacement of Reince Priebus?
Well, it remains to be seen. On the one hand, you did have, under Priebus, total, chaos. Anybody could walk into the Oval Office at any time on any agenda item and give the president paper and make their own special pleading. There was no schedule, no rhyme or reason, no structure. Now, I'm afraid General Kelly would like to take it the other operation. No one is allowed to speak to the president. No cabinet member can get through to him. There are no appointments. Whatever you do, don't tell him anything. We give him a sanitized news summary every day, and we try to isolate him so that he won't get in the way of the globalist agenda. This is not going to work. I've known the president for 40 years on an intimate basis, and the first time he learns something that he should have been told but wasn't, that's consequential, he's going to be very angry. He is his own man. He's not an incontinent child. He doesn't need to be babysat by a bunch of guys with a bunch of medals on their chests and a bunch of scrambled eggs on their visors. He's the president of the United States. He's a hell of a lot smarter than General Kelly. He doesn't need, a monitor.
In your very intelligent opinion, I want to get your thoughts on the situation with North Korea. They allegedly now have the ability to deliver a nuclear warhead, probably within the next 7 days or so. They posed a threat to Guam. What do you think should be done about North Korea, and what do you think will be done about North Korea?
Well, I think it's kind of funny, overheated rhetoric from the Democrats about how irresponsible what a cowboy is, because Donald Trump said exactly what Barack Obama told him when they met at the White House right after Trump's election. Obama warned the president, the new president, that North Korea was on the verge of a nuclear breakthrough and have to be dealt with. It was okay when Bill Clinton and Barack Obama said these things, but when Donald Trump says them, it's provocative, he's irresponsible, nonsense. We finally have a president who will not draw a line in the sand and then sit back helplessly when our adversaries cross it. And if this little psycho in North Korea wants to start it, Donald Trump will finish it. I assure you, it would be a giant mistake to challenge this man. He will use the full force and power of the United States to incinerate this little communist dictatorship.
And in my opinion, it's long overdue as well, because this has been going on for 40 or 50 years under the various dynasty here that Kim Jong-un is under. Before we let you go,
and it would send a very clear message to the Iranians and the Chinese and everyone else that if you want to mess with us, you will pay a horrible consequence.
Absolutely. You're 100% correct. What is next for Roger Stone? Do you have a new book coming out? What is happening next with your son? I know you still have the president's here from time to time, so I'm assuming that you speak with him on occasion when you can. And what's coming up next for you?
Well, I, of course, wrote a book called The Making of the President 2016, How Donald Trump Orchestrated a Revolution. I think it's the best book on the 2016 election. There's a new book out called Devil's Bargain, which claims that Steve Bannon is the secret genius and the strategist behind the Donald Trump campaign. This is a laughable, bogus lie. Donald Trump had his strategy, his positions on trade, immigration, nationalism, NAFTA. These things were mapped out long before Bannon joined the campaign after the convention. So the idea that Bannon is some kind of genius and that Donald Trump was just a puppet, a marionette, is bogus. I spoke to a guy who ran into Bannon yesterday on the streets of Washington right outside of Lafayette Park. At first he took him for a homeless guy, since Bannon can't seem to shave his entire face or doesn't seem to have a working acquaintance with soap and water. But I think that you will find that The Making the President 2016, Donald Trump Orchestrated a Revolution by Roger Stone, is the single best treatise on the 2016 campaign. You'll find out a lot you didn't learn from mainstream media about how Donald Trump won and what it means. But this is not a love letter to myself. I'm just lucky to have been involved. Donald Trump doesn't have a Karl Rove-like figure in his political operation. Trump doesn't need people to put words in his mouth or ideas in his head, and Steve Bannon was most definitely not the chief strategist behind Donald Trump's election.
Well, with regard to Donald Trump's positions, we have seen interview clips from him from going years back, including a recent release of the 1999 interview that he had with Tim Russert of NBC News, where he talked about North Korea, and the same things he's saying today were the things he was saying back in 1999. So you're absolutely correct.
Well, in 1988, when Donald Trump and I traveled to New Hampshire, where he spoke to the Portsmouth, New Hampshire Chamber of Commerce, he had two themes. One, our trading partners were taking advantage of us, and that all of our trade agreements were one-sided, and they were sucking the jobs out of America. And secondarily, it's time for our NATO allies to pay up. We should not continue to count on American taxpayers to carry the load while wealthy nations never pony up their cash. And it's amazing how many of them have now. Over $360 million finally kicked in by our allies. Trump called them out on it. So for those who think, he's a confection, that he hasn't held these positions for a long time, they need to look at the record.
Once again, the name of the two books that I highly recommend by Roger Stone, The Making of the President 2016, How Donald Trump Orchestrated a Revolution, and the recently released paperback version of The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, with some new information on it. So if you didn't read it the first time, please pick up a copy of the paperback along with Roger Stone's new book. Roger, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. We hope we can call on you again from time to time. It was an honor to have you on the program.
Well, we're delighted to be here, and I hope we made a little news.
You did. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Roger Stone joining us on this Truth Unsealed special report, and we appreciate him being with us, and we hope to have him on again as news breaks and information becomes available that he can help provide some insight into. Now, the two big takeaways from the interview with Roger Stone are this. There is a deep state pedophile ring operating out of Washington, D.C. Former National Security Advisor General Micheal Flynn, as well as his son, have a list of those deep state pedophiles. They're sitting on that list, and General Flynn is prepared to use that list as a form of defense should the deep state try to do any further damage to him, his family, his career, or to President Donald Trump. It is very real. The list exists, and this is going to get out there and could get very ugly should it become necessary for General Flynn to use this list to protect himself. The second big takeaway from this interview is that there are people working within Trump's own inner circle, people that Trump has hired and put in positions of power that may be doing him more harm than good, including current National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, who is in opposition to everything that Donald Trump wants to do with regard to foreign policy. And the biggest thing that I got out of talking to Roger Stone, and I think you caught it too, is the fact that his current Chief of Staff, John Kelly, who replaced Reince Priebus, is keeping information from Donald Trump, keeping information from the President of the United States, including the fact that H.R. McMaster thinks that the unmasking of Trump campaign officials by former National Security Advisor Susan Rice is not illegal. There's nothing wrong with it. And he even extended her security clearance. According to Roger Stone, John Kelly is keeping this information from the President of the United States. He does not know about this because, as Roger Stone pointed out, Donald Trump would become very angry if he had this information. This is incredible stuff here, folks. Incredible. And I'm hoping that as many people as possible will view this video and glean from this the information that is necessary. Now, of course, a lot of this has to do, again, goes back to, especially with regard to General Micheal Flynn, the topic we have been covering in many of our YouTube videos as well as our radio show, and of course, that is the Pizzagate pedophile sex trafficking scandal. This whole thing about the idea that General Micheal Flynn has this information, this deep state pedophile list, goes back to the original WikiLeaks dumps which were dumped last fall in the run-up to the 2016 presidential election. The information that WikiLeaks dumped, a lot of that information, was provided to them, as Roger Stone pointed out in the interview, by Seth Rich, a DNC operative who gave that information to WikiLeaks, and then they released it. But within those emails about Benghazi and all of the other things that were released was coded words indicating that there was a pedophile ring operating out of Washington, D.C., as well as within the Hollywood community, the business community, the industrial military complex. It's nationwide, and it is worldwide. And we have been covering the story here. And this information is being dubbed by many in the mainstream press as fake news. But we know that it's not fake news. We know that it's very, very real. And that's why we have been covering it here and attempting to bring this information to light. Now, to that end, we have put together a 100-page report on the Pizzagate pedophile sex trafficking scandal. A complete dossier, a book, if you will, replete with information, news, links, trackbacks, profusely illustrated, covering everything about the Pizzagate pedophile sex trafficking scandal from the initial WikiLeaks dumps last fall right up until the present moment. Now, we feel it's important that you have this information so that you can discuss this with your family, your friends, the people that you work with, anyone that is interested in knowing the truth about what's going on in Washington, D.C. and this deep state effort to unseat a sitting president of the United States. And Donald Trump, since he took office, has vowed to clean up the pedophile ring operating across the United States, and he's been using every tool at his disposal to do so. And one of the tools is the list that General Micheal Flynn, his former national security advisor, has. And Micheal Flynn will use this information, if necessary, to protect himself, his family, as well as the President of the United States. But the information that he has is the list of the pedophiles. What we have here in this 100-plus page report, which I'd like to get into your hands, is what exactly this pedophile ring is doing. Satanic rituals, drinking and consuming the blood of young children for the purpose of eternal youth, creating a fountain of youth, if you will. Murdering the kids for body parts. I mean, it's horrible, but it's all true, and it's been documented in this 100-plus page report, which I would like to get into your hands. How do we do it? It's one of two ways. You can go to any one of our three websites, americatalks.com, truthunsealed.com, or darkoutpost.com. When you get there, at the top of the page, there's a banner ad. Click that banner ad to go to foodforliberty.com/David Z. You got to click that banner because it's going to take you to not just the Food for Liberty website, but foodforliberty.com/David Z. Food for Liberty is a company that we have partnered with. They sell delicious, nutritious, storable food, food which you can eat and enjoy in the comfort of your own home with your family and friends right now. But in the event of an emergency, a man-made emergency, everybody's talking about North Korea right now having nukes and getting ready to possibly strike the United States of America. And a lot of the stores that sell everything from bunkers and shelters to potassium iodide to things that would protect from nuclear fallout, to food, to clothing, to supplies, camping gear, survival supplies. These stores are selling these things, and people are buying them like crazy right now because they're anticipating that either something like that or civil unrest, or should Donald Trump be ousted by the deep state, again, we could have civil unrest in this country, the likes of which we have never seen before. Roger Stone in the interview talked about that. He does not advocate it, nor do I, but it could possibly happen. Or it could be a natural disaster. It could be a storm or something terrible that happens and you couldn't get to the grocery store to buy food or supplies, or you got to the grocery store and the shelves were cleaned out. What would you do? Well, if you had this Food for Liberty food, manufactured by a very reputable company, Numana Foods, on hand, you would be able to provide for yourself and your family. They also sell water filtration systems, vitamin supplements, camping gear, survival supplies. Everything you need to protect yourself and your family, you can get at Food for Liberty. But you got to go to our website to do it. So you got to go to americatalks.com, truthunsealed.com, or darkoutpost.com and click that banner ad. Now, if you don't see the banner ad, it could be that your browser is set to not show graphics and or pop-ups or links. If that's the case, you need to change the setting on your browser or use a different browser. But again, americatalks.com, truthunsealed.com, or darkoutpost.com. Click that banner ad at the top of the page to go to foodforliberty.com/David Z. Check them out. And if you'll make a purchase of $25 or more, and they do have a sample pack of food for $24.95, and that counts. If you'll make that purchase of $25 or more and then email me a receipt for your purchase, email that receipt to americatalks@hotmail.com. That's americatalks, all one word, at hotmail.com. In return, I'll email you back this 100-plus page report on Pizzagate. Okay? Now, don't email the receipt to the email address that is used for the donation. I'm going to tell you about that in a moment. There's a different email. Make sure you email the receipt for your purchase from Food for Liberty to americatalks@hotmail.com. And I'll send you this 100-plus page report. Now, if you don't want to make a purchase from Food for Liberty, that's fine. The other way you can get this report is to go to the same three websites, any one of them, americatalks.com, truthunsealed.com, or darkoutpost.com. Scroll down the right side of the page till you come to the donate button. Click that donate button, make a donation of $25 or more, and then email me a copy of the receipt for your donation to the same email address, americatalks@hotmail.com. That's americatalks, all one word, at hotmail.com. And in return, I will email you back this 100-plus page report on Pizzagate. Okay, we'll send it right off to you. Okay? Now, again, as I started to say, there is another email address when you go to make the donation. If you're not making a Food for Liberty purchase and you're going to make a donation, there's another email address that the donation goes to. That's the donation email. Don't send me the receipt, a copy of the receipt, to that email address. You've got to send it to americatalks@hotmail.com. That's americatalks, all one word, at hotmail.com. And then in return, I will email you back in PDF form this 100-plus page report on Pizzagate, profusely illustrated with links, trackbacks, all the information you need to be armed and ready to provide information to anyone who will listen about this horrific Pizzagate pedophile sex trafficking scandal going on across the United States and around the world right now. Okay, so those are the two ways you can get it. Either make a purchase from Food for Liberty through our website or a donation through our websites. Email us the receipt for either your purchase or your donation to americatalks@hotmail.com, and I'll send you back this 100-plus page report on Pizzagate. To recap, there is a deep state pedophile ring operating out of Washington, D.C. The deep state is attempting to do anything and everything in its power to oust President Donald Trump from office. They're doing this in many different ways. One of the ways they are doing it is by going after his close confidants, one of which was General Micheal Flynn, former National Security Advisor, who has been forced to resign and who is now under investigation as part of this ginned-up Russian hacking scandal, which doesn't exist. But General Micheal Flynn is prepared to defend himself from the deep state, and one of the ways he's going to do that is he is sitting on a list of the deep state pedophiles. Roger Stone, political operative in Washington, D.C., and a close confidant of Donald Trump, knows that General Micheal Flynn has this list and is ready to provide it should he need to do so to protect himself, his reputation, his family, and the President of the United States. Also, according to Roger Stone, several people within Trump's own inner circle are attempting to do him in, including current National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, who is in opposition to everything that Donald Trump wants to do foreign policy-wise, and that Donald Trump's current Chief of Staff, General Kelly, is keeping information about H.R. McMaster's views from Donald Trump because he knows that Donald Trump would be very upset about that, and he's trying to shield the president from valuable information. This is not doing the president a service. We will continue to cover this story as information becomes available. We will continue to cover the Pizzagate pedophile sex trafficking scandal as well.